Hello, church. I'm hoping everything's going well with you. Uh, Today, we're going to talk about a little bit about suffering and devastation. Okay, not something you usually want to hear about, but we're going to talk about it because I want you to know uh, sometimes how God can take that bad stuff in our lives and turn it into a blessing, at least for someone else. As a pastor, I've been a pastor guy since I was 19. Okay, so 43 years. As a pastor, you are often, as a minister, often just thrown into the middle. I mean, thrown right into the middle of people suffering. Sometimes it's people that you have known for a long time. Sometimes it's somebody that you maybe only have met once or you have never met. And but they're going through a crisis. They're going through a devastation and a suffering, and they need a minister, and so you get thrown right into the middle of their suffering. And countless times that has happened. Sometimes it's just sometimes it's a funeral or something, but sometimes it's something that even major. My first one that I can recall, I was a young, probably 20-year-old pastor, just married, working in the coal mine, and a guy that I work with came up to me in the mine one day and said that he had a neighbor whose baby had just died, 7-month-old baby had just died of crib death. And they didn't have a minister. They didn't, kind of even believe in God. But he had talked to them, and that they have agreed to have a minister come and share with them in for the child's funeral and all that. So I go there and I meet this guy. The guy's named Terry. I meet him for the first time, and I walked in, a complete stranger, and all of a sudden, boom! I am right in the middle of their suffering. Because here what I found out when I got there. Not only have that morning have their 7-month-old son die of a crib death, but only 4 weeks ago, his twin brother have died in a work-related accident. And less than a year ago, his mother and his father and his oldest daughter were all killed in a car accident. And man, they had a lot of suffering. They had a lot of pain going on. They had a lot of questions. They wanted to know a lot of things like, why did God do this? How are we to get by? And all those things. And so I remember that. Then I remembered my latest one, guy, and it's just a few days ago. And as I talk about this just being a few days ago, please don't ask me, who is it, what happened, is it in the newspaper, okay? Just accept it. A few days ago, I get a call from one of our church ladies about a lady that she worked with who has been devastated. She came home from work and went in and was visiting with her mother when all of a sudden her house got broke into. She was grabbed by three or four men, and she was raped, and her mother was beat up terribly, and she was devastated. And why she was devastated? Well, she was a lady of faith. She was a lady of faith. She was a lady who thought, God was protecting her, and all these things happened. So oftentimes, when you're a minister, you may be in a distance, and then crisis or strategy happened or devastation happened, and boom, you're right there in the middle of it. And through the years, something I have found out about that, as I have watched over and over and over again these situations, here's something I've learned. That when we and I go through suffering, and we go through devastation, and guys, it's not because not because God did it. The scripture tells us it rains on the just and the unjust. When it snow on you, whether you're a righteous person or whether you're a wicked person, okay? Life happens. To say it straight, shit happens. Shit happens in life. And it's not because God isn't there. It's not because God doesn't love you. It's because it's called life and things happen. And we all know that when it does happen, the presence of Jesus is there. And by holding on to him and do all that, we get through it. But here's what happens. Something that have been devastating for your life, some suffering that you have gone through, I have found over and over and over again, somewhere in the future, maybe long in the future, the suffering and the pain that you went through, the devastation you went through, you'll run across somebody else who have went through a similar situation. And here they are, they're feeling like nobody understands how they feel. They feel like nobody knows their pain. They feel sometimes like nobody cares. They wonder where God is. They wonder how they don't get by the next day, and they are devastated. They are devastated. And pastor and counselor do their best, but they need somebody they can connect with. And guess who they can connect with? You. Because you, somewhere along the line, have experienced similar suffering and similar devastation. And so our loving God has a way of using the horrible days and the horrible seasons in our lives to somewhere in the future cause us to be able to be his ministry, to be able to stand with him and be able to minister to those who feel so long, because those feelings are real. You know, those feelings are real. Those feelings of doubt, those feelings of anger, those feeling of hurt, those feeling of devastation, those feeling like, you know, will I ever be happy again? And when we've been there and when we have done through that, man, we understand that. And nobody can minister to you any better than somebody who understands, somebody who have been there. And so, guys, that's something I want you to know. You know, I know it doesn't mean much when you're going through your devastation, but I want you to know, when shit happens and life is hell with you, somewhere down the road, you don't make a connection with somebody who needs you, who needs to know that there is life after devastation. You're going to be the one that will be able to tell them. Okay? So hold that up. I'm going to tell you, for instance, and that for instance is in my life. You know, that's probably the best way to do. And this story, you know, this experience, you know, isn't well known. I don't share it a whole lot. But I was probably 9, 10, or 11 years old, and my sister Ava and her boyfriend at the time, Greg, who had now been my brother-in-law for years, took me to a drive-in movie. And man, I was thrilled. You know, I was a little brother getting to go with my sister and her boyfriend, you know, to the drive-in movie, tagging along. And during the movie time, I had to go to a restroom. And I left, you know, to walk up to the restroom. And when I got in the restroom, there was several people in there. And among them, there were 3 guys in there, older guys. You know, I don't know how old, but they seemed older to me. And they were smoking. And they could tell that I was a little wimp, you know, a little kid. You know, I was tongue-tied and all that. And they began to harass me, began to pushing me around, blew smoke in my face. And knowing me, I probably began to cry. And do all that. Well, to make a long story short, what else happened was they molested me. They didn't rape me, but they fondled me. You know, they fondled my privates, and they spit chewing tobacco on it, and they dropped cigarette butts on it. Then they laughed and had a good time, and they left, and then I ran out to the car. And the minute I got in the car, I cried. And I told Ava and Gray kind of what happened. You know, I don't even know if Ava and Greg will remember this, but I share with my sister and them, you know, that some guys blew smoke in me. I didn't tell them the whole thing. All right, fast forward. 40 years later, I am a guest minister somewhere in Texas, I can't remember, at a men's retreat. And during this men's retreat, there was a time when just sitting around, and a man came up to me and began to talk, and tears ran down his face. Anger was expressed, and what it was that he, at his job, had been molested by a group of men. And it has devastated him. And it was recent. You know, it was recent. He had came to that men's retreat seeking God and seeking comfort, not telling anybody. And he kept telling me, nobody understands. Nobody knows how it feels, and I can't tell anybody, because they won't think I'm a man and all that. And the good news was, our loving God brought us together so I could tell that grown man an experience that I had as a 10, 11-year-old kid. And it's devastated me, way back then. I'm not going to get into all that, but it devastated me. And he was devastated, and I understood. I was able to understand, not because I read it in some book, not because, all my years as a minister and counseling people, that, wow, I learned some technique. No, I was able to minister to him because I have been through a similar situation. Well, I was molested by men of my own sex. Well, I was abused. Well, I was devastated. Well, I felt shattered. And me and him are still friends on Facebook. He's doing well. And he thanks me often about, man, thanks for being there, all that kind of stuff. And I keep reminding him over and over again, where it wasn't me, it was God that brought us together. So I share all that with you, church family, because I know that all of you, or most of you, have went through some suffering, because shit happens in life. Some of you have went through devastating time, and unfortunately, some of us will yet. But here's what I want you to know. Your feelings are real. Don't try to hide them, Go ahead and be transparent with somebody. Tell them your fear. Tell them your anger. Tell them your frustration with God. Tell them all those things. So that the loving God and your loving people that love you around you can help you not only survive, but heal and be resurrected from that. Because here's what I have found. All these years being brought right into the middle of somebody else's suffering, I have found that somewhere down the road, months, years, decades down the road, God has a way of having you stumble into the light and get in the middle of somebody else suffering who have been in a similar situation as you, and you bring them hope, you bring them peace, you bring them joy, you bring them healing, you and Jesus changes their lives. So guys, when you're suffering, it's hell. Be real about it. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to suck it up. Share it. But also be mindful that our great God has a way of using the shit that life brings in our life, if I can keep saying that bad word, to someday, somewhere, whether it's a decade down the road, for you to be able to minister to somebody who have been in a similar situation. So guys, I love you. It should be nice that none of the others suffer again. None of us ever had devastation again. But guys, when it does happen, know that you will survive. You're going to be okay. And if you turn to God, and if you try to do healthy things with your soul, that thing will even end up somehow being a blessing for you. But the real miracle that'll come somewhere down the line, you are going to be able to minister to someone in another situation. So God, I love you. I care about you. And hang in there. God bless. Bye.